happening is sometimes you're failing, sometimes you're not meeting the objective because you're actually using your strengths in the wrong context. If you use your strengths in the wrong environment, it acts as a weakness. So today what I want to talk to you about is how to put that in its rightful order, how to develop your gifts accordingly, how to develop your talents accordingly. Two things you have to do is you have to study the discipline, and you also have to study yourself. A lot of times we put off not studying ourselves because we think that is not as important, but I'm telling you that it is equally as important as studying the discipline itself. It's always about development. It's always about development. And so as you become a higher performer consistently, because that's what you have to do in order to have success, in order to hit that point of greatness, you have to do it over and over and over again, because anybody can do it once, but not everybody can do it over again. So how do you become a high performer consistently over time? Well, I want to tell you a little story. Because as many of you know, my journey into the nation's elite direct action force was undeniably the most physically grueling, the most physically challenging thing that I have ever been through at that point in time. But what I didn't know that the journey that I was getting ready to embark on was going to challenge me in ways that I was not prepared for mentally and physically. So I had to evolve. I had to turn into a person who could maintain that high performance aptitude regardless of the situation. But I had to learn myself in order to do that, because as I learned myself, I was able to become adaptable to the situations that I was going through. And so what I'm telling you is that it's not about how you get into the door, it's about how you amplify the room once you're in it. And so today we're talking about strengths and weaknesses as it relates to the high performance. And I got a key for you. And I'm going to share that with you, but it's time for us to take it to the next level. I talk to so many people. As I talk to people, I realize that there's so much talent. There is so much potential that is just fading away. And so today I'm going to ask you some tough questions. And I need you to bear with me as I ask you these questions. The first question is, what separates you from everyone else? I'm not talking about your gifts. We all have gifts. I need you to hear me right now. What separates you from everyone else? We all have gifts. So what's different about you? What separates you from everyone else? When it comes to your gifts, have you mastered them? Have you developed them? When it comes to yourself, have you personally developed yourself? Have you taken the time to try to understand why certain situations land on you in certain contexts? Have you tried to understand why you feel certain ways about certain things that you see or that you come across? Have you tried to understand why you behave in certain ways when the situation is not as it seems? So as we have that part of the conversation, I can tell you what separates me. What separates me is I refuse to give up. In my struggle, I'm going to keep going. In my grief, I'm going to keep going. Through the deaths of those that are close to me, I'm going to keep going. When I feel like giving up, I'm going to keep going. When I feel unqualified, I'm going to keep pressing. When I feel overwhelmed, I'm just going to press right back. God has brought me back to life too many times for me to give up now. So why are you giving up now? What have you sacrificed already? Don't just waste that sacrifice. Don't just waste those opportunities. Don't just waste those moments away just by walking away. Because if you walk away now, you'll never know what's on the other side. You'll never know what's behind that door. You could be closer than you think. When I think about the harshest environments that I had to endure, when I think about the toughest times that I had to go through when I was with that elite team, there's so much that comes to mind. But what I do remember throughout all of that, I remember that I cried too much to give up now. I felt brokenness too many times to give up now. It's in me and I owe it. And I'm going to pour it out. Your problem is you have too many reasons to quit. So turn the tide and give yourself too many reasons to not give up. Give yourself too many reasons to keep going. How big is your dream? How big is your goal? How much does it mean to you? What sacrifices have you already made? What happens when you leave yourself no choice but to succeed? So many questions to answer, so many ways to look at this. But I need you to look at yourself. I need you to take a look and say, what separates you from someone else? What makes you different? And then you got to look at your goals. You got to look at your dreams. And look at it as, what happens if you gave yourself no other choice but to succeed? What if you stopped looking at a way out and you said, this is the only way out when it came to your goals? What happens if you treat them as if it's your only option? And as you go through this, I gotta tell you, look, it's not supposed to be easy. It's not going to be easy. I've had people say the ugliest things about me, and I just kept my mouth shut and I kept going. I grit my teeth and I kept going. Sometimes you just gotta shut up and keep going, because guess what? When I finally looked up, those who were talking were not even on the same level anymore. They were in the same place, talking about people in the same way. So stop caring so much about what someone else has to say and get your butt up and you get to it regardless of what happens. If you got to talk to yourself in public, then you do what you got to do. If you got to scream, you got to shout, whatever you got to do. If you got to cry, whatever it takes, you have to do what is necessary. I remember how bad I wanted to quit when my relationships were failing. I remember how bad I wanted to quit when I was sleeping on cold floors. I remember how bad I wanted to quit when it seemed like nothing was going my way. If I could just make it through all of this, I remember knowing that I could make it through anything. And some of you need to stand up and say that same thing. Take the keys back and shut the door on quitting. And when you feel like you can't do it on your own, you reach out to someone who understands your pain. You reach out to someone who understands your struggle. Stop being afraid to open your mouth. Some of you believe you're operating in your strengths when the reality is, because of the situation you're in, you're actually operating in your own weaknesses. Can your strengths act as your weaknesses? Yes, they can. It depends on the context. It depends on the scenario. It depends on the situation. Let me give you an example. Kobe Bryant injured his right arm in a game. And he had a choice. He could sit the rest of the game out, but the game was on the line. And he had already been working on his weakness. And so he went back in the game and he finished the game with his left arm and he scored over 30 points. He had the option to quit if he wanted to, but he didn't quit. He understood that his strengths in that moment weren't his strengths, so he needed to rely on something else. And sometimes you have to rely on another tool. Sometimes you have to rely on another gift. Sometimes you have to rely on something else in order to get the job done. But you have to keep going. The option to quit needs to be a door that is shut closed, not to be opened again. And I'm telling you, if you're going to become a high performer over time, if you're going to get to that place, you got to study yourself. Don't just study your discipline. That's part of it. That's part of the formula. But you got to get down to business to understand why you operate the way you do. Because as you operate the way you do, you're able to understand your own behaviors. You can become adaptable as the situation becomes harder. You can become adaptable as the situation becomes too much at times, as it seems like it's overwhelming. And then stop caring about what other people got to say, because your success is going to smack them in the mouth for you. I love y'all and I'm out.